Good morning and welcome to Rising. We've got another great show for you today. It is Thursday morning, I believe, and we're just having so much fun already, aren't we?
We are, and also you are here tomorrow, so the audience needs to know.
Hey, that's right.
Robby on a Friday.
Me and Amber did a little swapping around, so I will be here in her place next 2 Fridays.
So I have 2 more days of radar, today and tomorrow.
Aren't you excited?
I'm thrilled. What's on your radar today?
Well, you will not be surprised at what I am talking about now. After just 2 days, President Donald Trump is already trumpeting his decision to federalize the Washington, D.C. police force and send in the National Guard as a rousing success. As of about yesterday, you see a big change and people are feeling safer already, Trump said at the Kennedy Center on Wednesday. They were afraid to walk out. They're not afraid anymore. Let's watch some of his remarks.
The stats went through the roof. You know, they had a man that was forced to put up stats like they were doing better. They're not doing better. Crime is the worst it's ever been, but it started as of about yesterday. You see a big change, and people are feeling safe already. I've had so many calls. Thank you, sir. Thank you. They were afraid to walk out. They're not afraid anymore.
Now, city residents who are eager for sound solutions to D.C.'s enduring crime problems should hold their applause for now, because a temporary display of police force, I'm sorry to say, it's not a panacea for the widespread government incompetence that continues to cripple D.C.'s criminal justice system. Now, dozens of National Guard troops did appear on the National Mall on Tuesday, and up to 800 of them are expected to come to D.C. by next week. The increased police presence in the nation's capital this week has yielded more than 100 arrests. The most significant category of arrests on Tuesday was for firearms violations, with 33 arrested on such charges and 24 guns confiscated by the police. Authorities also arrested 23 illegal immigrants, 7 alleged drug offenders, and 1 homicide suspect. Now, federal law enforcement agents were also spotted in the upscale Georgetown neighborhood, as well as Navy Yard, an area of the city that has seen a significant number of carjackings in recent years. Trust me, including that of a sitting member of Congress. It is not so great there, I say from personal experience. Now, the crime situation in D.C. is extremely complex. The statistics are not entirely reliable, and jurisdictional standoffs between the city and the feds were common even before Trump's latest move. Moreover, several factors, including the appallingly high number of murders in 2023 and the enduring trend of marauding bands of teenagers committing opportunistic acts of violence and theft, certainly created the impression that the city is as dangerous as ever, even though official reports suggest that the post-pandemic crime surge has abated. Well, Trump's appraisal of the crime situation may be not entirely in sync with reality, but it is nevertheless true that the nation's capital should be setting a much better example. D.C. residents certainly deserve more from their government. Now, in theory, hiring more police officers could definitely be a part of the puzzle. Both the mayor and the chief of police maintain that police staffing levels are historically low. A temporary infusion of National Guard troops stationed around the monuments, which are relatively safe areas, well, that will not make much of a difference, however. Now, the incidents that kicked off Trump's federal takeover was the attack on a former Doge staffer in one of the trendy areas of the city, DuPont Circle, Logan Circle, that area, which has high levels of foot traffic. Now, an increased police presence in neighborhoods that have recently become prone to antisocial behavior from large numbers of young people would probably deter opportunistic criminal attacks. Of course, tackling the most serious kinds of crime in D.C., gun homicides, would involve sending more police, or at least the most experienced police, into the most crime-ridden areas of the city, Wards 7 and 8, which are on the other side of the Anacostia River. Now, unfortunately, of course, tackling the most serious kinds of gun crime in D.C. would involve sending more police, at least the most experienced police, into the most crime-ridden areas of the city, Ward 7 and 8, which are on the other side of the Anacostia River. Unfortunately, as my friend, former Libertarian Party Chair Joseph Bishop Henchman documented in an article for Reason magazine, police officers with the most seniority and expertise get their choice of jobs and usually leave the really tough policing to the rookies. Indeed, this speaks to the city's overall problem, which is well explained by Bishop Henchman. Local government incompetence caused a total breakdown of D.C.'s criminal justice system. A main culprit is the D.C. Forensics Laboratory, which was deaccredited in 2021 due to numerous problems. This meant that for years, prosecutors had no working lab to help process evidence to assist with cases. As a consequence of this and other issues, successful prosecutions plummeted. Earlier this year, the crime lab did regain accreditation, though it's reportedly still unable to do ballistics testing. For DC's crime situation to improve dramatically, look, high crime areas need somewhat more attention from the authorities. Homicide detectives need more resources to be put toward solving cases, and then prosecutors need both the tools and the willpower to do their jobs effectively. If federal troops intend to assist with any of that, great. If not, then we just can't declare victory before the battle is over. Sorry.
I think that a day or two into a new strategy to go and do a press conference about how much of a big success this is.
You don't feel safer already, Lindsey?
No, and I actually just moving here, so I actually don't see any major differences except for a larger police presence. But what I did see, I watched a video online yesterday, was people that were sitting in their home relaxing and then had National Guard at their door, people of color that were being asked for their ID, and they were like, do you have a warrant? Or
at their door?
Yeah, they were just sitting in there in the front yard on their stoop, as one should who buys property. Mm-hmm. The stoop is also yours. And the police walked the first step on the stoop, the federal official, and said, may I see your ID? He's like, I live here. And they had a pleasant exchange that was fine enough. But like, imagine you purchase property and somebody just walking up to you because they just picked and choose who they should stop and ask for ID at their own home. And so these are just videos that I'm seeing online. So like,
I don't know if they're going to someone's home to ask for. I assume they're following up on an investigation.
No, they asked him, do you have a warrant or something that you're looking for? I live here. And he was like, no, you didn't hear that Trump is sending federal authorities. This is a whole exchange. And the officer was nice enough. The federal officer was nice enough. But he was like, you didn't hear that Trump has people in town doing this? And the guy was like, no, I didn't hear.
Sending to people's homes?
Well, I think they just were in a neighborhood and someone happened to live there, as people do. Like people live in Navy Yard, like people have brownstones, or how do you guys call them here?
Brownstones.
Yeah, okay, brownstones.
Row houses.
Row houses, so people have those, so they can be sitting on their stoops. So they're in several neighborhoods. Row houses are all over DC, so you know that people have stoops in front yards. And so somebody just like, ID, maybe it was a couple of guys, and I was just like, okay, this is kind of...
I would like to know more about the context of it. Obviously, I don't think the police should be just, nor do the police want to be just bothering people for no reason at their homes. What we want is, again, the bands of teenagers to be deterred from opportunistic crime. We want more resources put towards solving gun homicides. I want more senior police officers sent across the Anacostia River to the most crime-plagued areas of the city. Right now, the most juvenile, rookiest cops are the ones sent there because of the way seniority works. That's always a problem in government contracting and government employment, that once you work there longer, you get more seniority, you get to deploy yourself to the easiest jobs and send the newest employees on the hardest missions. This is a serial problem with government work. It's, by the way, the reason why none of the escalators in DC work. They're always broken at every metro station because the elevator repairmen are unionized, and the union always sends the least experienced people to go actually do the hard escalator fixing jobs.
So I would love to hear a press conference in a real duration of time, and I know this might go on for 30 days without congressional approval, but I would love to hear a 30-day report about how many long-term solutions began implementation to see how people can actually have sustainability and in the city that's not crime. And so part of that would be saying, okay, we've moved homeless people off the streets. Here's where they're gone. Here's the shelters they've gone. Here are the programs that they're in. Not, oh, they're in Virginia. Oh, now they're in Maryland. We push them out because we want to make our city look good where the White House is. I want to also hear people say, okay, kids are less out in the street doing stuff at 11 o'clock at night. We've created these 5 youth programs that actually have had success. We've seen enrollment skyrocket. I would love to hear this information paired together because, like Mayor Bowser is saying, she's very much open to the idea of having extra protection. There are people all over the city that want to feel safe and sound with their families, but I'd like to hear some reports about long-term solution and not so much showmanship.
Mayor Bowser is happy to have the help, I think, from the national troops.
She did a lot of different...
Well, she knows that we need to hire 800 more police officers.
She can't just be like, I'm unhappy, because she knows that she's going to have problems.
Because she knows that people are unhappy with the level of crime.
It's a debatable topic.
Up next, Tulsi Gabbard has released new Russiagate documents. We'll show you what's in them. Stay tuned. Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard has released new Russiagate documents.
This time they appear to be an email exchange between former National Intelligence Director James Clapper and former NSA Director Mike Rogers.
The documents show that Rogers first emailed Clapper and expressed concerns about his team not having enough time to review and then be confident in assessing a certain aspect of Russian interference in the 2016 election.
Now, specifically, whether Russia hacked the DNC and DNCC. In the emails Gabbard shared, Rogers appears to write to Clapper in part, quote, I know that you agree that this is something we need to be 100% comfortable with before we present it to the president. We have one chance to get this right, and it's critical that we do so. Rogers appeared to continue, quote, if the intent is to create an integrated product that is CIA, FBI, NSA jointly authored, that we can all defend, we need a process that allows us to be comfortable, and I'm concerned that we are not there yet. Now, Rogers, per the documents, affirmed to Clapper that he does not necessarily agree substantively on the aspect of Russian interference, but that his team wanted to stand behind the intel report without hesitation.
Here's where things get interesting. The documents Gabbard dropped show that Clapper on that same day emailed back to Rogers, quote, understand your concern. It's essential that we, the CIA, the NSA, the FBI, and ODNI, be on the same page and are all supportive of the report. In the highest tradition of that's our story and we're sticking to it. Clapper then wrote, according to the docs, that the CIA had provided to the intel community a draft of the assessment put together by the ad hoc fusion cell. This fusion cell, intel community, sources tell Fox News, was basically Clapper's team he put together to draft the assessment. Clapper, per the docs, then appeared to end his email by writing, we will facilitate as much mutual transparency as possible as we complete the report, but more time is not negotiable. We have to compromise on our normal modalities since we must do this on such a compressed schedule. This is one project that has to be a team sport.
Now, back in July, Clapper and former CIA Director John Brennan wrote an op-ed for the New York Times setting the record straight about Russian election interference in 2016 and allegations of politicizing the investigation. The pair wrote in part, quote, the real politicization is the calculated distortion of intelligence by administration officials, notably Mr. Trump's Director of National Intelligence and the CIA's positions that should be apolitical. We find it deeply regrettable that the administration continues to perpetuate the fictitious narrative that Russia did not interfere with the 2016 election. It should instead acknowledge that a foreign nation state, a mortal enemy of the United States, routinely meddles in our national elections and will continue to do so unless we take appropriate bipartisan action to stop it.
Deputy Director of National Intelligence Aaron Lucas wrote on X, the legacy media wants to make this about foreign influence. It's not. These declassifications are critical to document how our own intelligence process was abused for political ends. If Americans can't trust that we're providing unbiased, apolitical intelligence to policymakers, we might as well go home.
So they rushed is the accusation and got in lockstep about a cause, something that is well documented a Republican strategy to get in lockstep, even behind causes that, let's say, half of the party doesn't believe in, like President Trump himself. Let's just get in line. Let's do these things. And so they looked into something that I think is worth looking into. Like the entire investigation into Russia was not a hoax. Donald Trump had contacts that should be questioned. They didn't say that they actually tampered with the votes. They said that they were going on social media, both bots and real Russian people, trying to integrate content that would sway people's minds about one candidate specifically, all right? Or they would hack into the DNC and also provide information about Hillary Clinton that was damning to her.
That was true information.
So that's what I'm saying. What's wrong with investigating that? Why is this such a huge, this is not a smoking gun. You have to look into that. This is a bipartisan committee that came up with these reports that showed that Russia had any type of access to our larger population of voters and was trying to take one side or another.
No, that's not what they did. They reached a conclusion that Donald Trump was elected because of Russia. That's why. And then at the direction of Barack Obama went searching for evidence that would bear out that idea that they introduced, despite the early evidence saying there was no hacking. Then they had to invent this utterly fraudulent narrative of influence via social media, which has by now been completely debunked. Yes, there were a small number of Russian paid bots. They were not, I've said this a million times, our viewers know this by now, they were not tailored to swing voters. They were not even in support of Donald Trump. They were rather just true and valid criticisms of Hillary Clinton.
Yes, exactly.
So then you have to take the position that telling people your opinion on a candidate, it's not hypnotism.
No,
it's what everybody's doing at all times.
Certainly not, but the actual hoax is the claim.
So how is that illegitimate?
Because the actual hoax is just the claim that the Congress, a bipartisan committee, should not look into something like this. Why would they not look into something like this? So yes, it might have been rushed, but you like to downplay, is that a huge crime to rush something? Like, that's the only thing here that I see. Okay, maybe Congress and maybe leaders should not rush through
What's
things.
the crime? Is it a crime to buy ads on Facebook?
No, the crime is that they're trying to tamper with the results of our election to favor one candidate. You shouldn't want any foreign leaders or any foreign influence, any president and hopeful president being in contact with people people that don't look like a connection that you would like to happen.
Let's get a little broader
Russia.
here. When the New York Times writes an editorial saying we endorse Hillary Clinton and we want you to vote for her, do you call that election interference?
No, that's an editorial board that's separate from the New
Okay,
York
so
Times
what's different than
writer.
Russian bots
because these are
saying
Russia.
Hillary Clinton is no good? It's Russia?
This is a editorial board that decides to endorse or not endorse. We're talking about a foreign nation that we don't have the best diplomatic
I don't have
relationships
bigotry
with.
toward foreigners.
Look, it's not about bigotry. Look at the relationship with Russia. Why would you want any country interfering with an American election? That is anti-democratic, right? We decide who our leaders are. So why would you want them paying money? Why would you want them paying money to support one candidate? Or why would you want them paying money to tarnish one candidate's legacy? Allow it to be a free and fair election amongst Americans who actually are going to be affected by the next leader.
If I was preventing people from saying how they feel about the candidate, that would be interference.
No, prevent people. It's not one thing. There's a targeted attack specifically on one candidate in order to make another candidate look better. Yeah, but
you're saying targeted attack, but it's just words. It's criticism.
And foreign
the targeted attack would be hacking the voting
and digging through emails to create a story about Hillary Clinton. That's what I'm saying. Like
it was a true story. It was her emails. That was a criminal act. I fully,
So we shouldn't want
that.
Russia doing that. So that's what I'm saying. There should be no argument that we should look into this as a Congress. That's like their sole job, is to make sure that nothing egregious is happening to the United States as a whole, America first. So Russia should not be first or coming in the election in any way. I don't really understand why this is we should agree here, Robby. We should not want Russia spending millions of dollars to try to influence our election, whether it's real people or bots. In any way. No one ever said
$1 gazillion.
Yeah, this is our American political system. We allow for people to spend money and lobbyists to spend money. We should not want let any foreign nation coming in and spending equal money try to influence.
I don't even really necessarily want to go here, but the First Amendment is not a guarantee of speech rights to a specific group of people, Americans. It's a restraint on what our government can do with respect to speech. So, the Russian people expressing opinions about Hillary Clinton on Facebook is, to me, not this urgent crisis that the mainstream media has spun themselves into.
Them digging in to find information in personal emails. Yeah, they're literally spending. It's like, why is this worth rehashing? The whole conversation is that Obama committed treason, and this is what Tulsi Gabbard is saying. When there are so many things to discuss, and it really is coming.
Obama
on the heels.
ordered the intelligence community to find damning information that Russia was
coming on the heels, and literally at a press conference where people were asking President Trump about Epstein once again, and then here comes in Tulsi Gabbard saying, I've got a smoking gun, and here we are. Like, there's nothing changed. Everybody understood. A bipartisan committee came forward with this information about Russia. So why are we rehashing the same situation? Every American should want to make sure that Russia in no way is involved in our elections, period. No matter how light it is, no matter how much little money they spent, they should not be involved in trying to make one candidate look terrible, and on the other hand, naturally make another candidate.
I don't agree, and I don't concede that that's true, but James Clapper reached the conclusion that Russia was responsible for getting Trump elected. He reached that conclusion. He said that in the pages of the New Yorker, despite having already seen the evidence that there was no hacking and so forth, but was directed to make a stronger statement by Barack Obama. I think that's a scandal. I don't know if it's treason,
about this, and we'll see what happens, which I think will be nothing. The redistricting battle taking another turn. So Texas Democrats reportedly discussing a plan to head home as Democratic governor mocks Trump in his announcement. We'll break it down next. Don't go anywhere.
The redistricting battle keeps heating up. Texas Democrats, once fleeing the Lone Star State to block a vote, are weighing plans on how to return home, per multiple reports. But Greg Abbott is ready to call another special session to redraw the maps and could possibly add more to the agenda. The Texas State Senate already passing the newly drawn maps that could give Republicans 5 more seats in the Lone Star State.
And as this redistricting battle goes national, California Governor Gavin Newsom saying his state will redraw their map. In a tweet bluntly mocking the president, Newsom's press office saying President Taco, Trump always chickens out, that's what that stands for, Trump missed the deadline to end the Texas redistricting, calling the president a chicken. And now California will redraw their lines to make them more beautiful. Earlier this week, Newsom sent Trump a letter urging him to stop Republican-led states from mid-decade redistricting, adding California can neutralize any gains made by Republicans' redrawn maps. I'm sorry, the taco thing is just so...
You're really amused by that.
I don't know. That's like a really good one. I think Gavin Newsom has been on a roll. I mean, he didn't make up the taco. Trump always chickens out. And the only reason why it's so funny to me, the only reason why it's so funny to me.
You finding this funny is funny to me, but
Because Trump got so mad about it. I remember in the Oval Office, someone had, sorry. Someone asked him about being a taco, and he just like went off. He couldn't focus on anything else. So I'm like, this is the thing. People say stuff about you every day. I've compared you to the worst of humans of all time. And
there was
taco,
anything in my life to bring me as much joy.
taco
as
is the one. Because I actually am very happy. I feel proud that the Democrats are actually doing something. I think for so long people have been like, do something, and Gavin Newsom is matching President Trump's energy and saying, if you want to do nonsense and redistrict based on not off of the census, which we know has been incorrect in the past, but also mostly incorrect in the not favoring
incorrect
people.
In that it counts millions of illegal immigrants.
Incorrect in that it overcounts people who are not of color and undercounts people of color, mostly because people of color didn't participate during the pandemic because they just didn't have time or resources and didn't want to.
Wait, it undercounts people of color? What now?
In 2020, people of color were undercounted severely because they didn't take they didn't follow the census. They didn't fill it out. They didn't go through the form that they send to your house. Like, you're asking people during an international pandemic to fill out a form. Some people had the luxury of time. Others didn't.
This is the mainstream institution in which you don't believe.
I'm just telling you what happened. I'm telling you what happened. It's actually documented. And they've said they've made mistakes, but I'm just telling you, when Texas grows by 95% in people of color, like that's the most growth happened with communities of color, and the maps are not redistricted to represent them in any way.
I'm not arguing with you.
The people that are most affected are not the Republicans throughout Texas that
government did it wrong.
Is
something I am always willing to believe. Okay, that's fine. To my earlier point, though. A problem conservatives point out with the census is that states that have a ginormous amount of illegal immigrants are because they're being counted, so they have higher, like California, it's a higher population and then gets more relative weight in our electoral college system and thus have an incentive to permit tons of illegal immigration.
But you know that President Trump has pushed this issue to the Supreme Court before. He's asked them if we can, or illegal immigrants can check that box on the census, and at least the American public can just know, right? No, this has happened in the past, and the Supreme Court said, no, we're not putting that on the census, because the census' actual job is to count the number of people in the country, illegal or not. They're trying to figure out who's here. So that's the point. So if it happened once, he can push it back to the Supreme Court, but he can get the same response. So we might as well move forward and figure out a new solution that actually makes sure that the people here are first.
Figured it out. It's deporting all the illegal immigrants.
Okay, well, when you get to that goal of every single person that came here, how you guys called the wrong way, then
but see, I would compromise and say they don't have to all go. They just don't count to give more political power to Democrats in California.
And in the meantime, they're just going to redistrict their way to a map that favors them and politicize.
Well, both sides are trying to redistrict to have a map that favors.
Well, Gavin Newsom is responding.
Yeah, he said, "All right, you do that, then I'm going to gerrymander California even more aggressively and add more states." That's fine. That's a perfectly. I'm not complaining about it. It's tit for tat move. Yeah, Gavin Newsom's doing something. He's got something going. That's fine.
And there's also trouble brewing on college campuses. Are the Trump administration university ultimatums truly a battle against bigotry or an attempt at control? I'm going to talk about that next in My Lens.
All right, Lindsay, now that you've recovered yourself, what is
calm. I need to be calm so I can move on to the next topic.
What's in your lens today?
We're talking about Harvard. So condemning anti-Semitism on campus is non-negotiable, I think, for everyone. But happening at Harvard right now, what's happening is not about just confronting hate. To me, it's about whether universities are for sale to the highest political bidder. Hear me out. The Trump administration has dangled a $500 million settlement to end its feud with Harvard, but the fine print would reshape how the university operates. From what gets taught to who oversees faculty to how students are policed. If Harvard takes this deal ironclad or without ironclad safeguards, it's not just selling out its students and professors, it's setting a precedent that the White House can use funding as a weapon to force ideological compliance. Now, we've seen the playbook. Columbia University paid $200 million to make investigations disappear, and in return accepted an independent monitor reporting directly to the administration, plus sweeping changes to campus governance. As one analysis warned, quote, academic freedom is severely threatened with a provost hanging over Middle Eastern studies and another monitor constantly reporting back to Trump. Translation, the chilling effect will last far longer than these headlines. Now, Brown University fought for and won a better outcome. It had a $50 million settlement with the administration and came with guarantees that the administration wouldn't dictate Brown's curriculum or content of academic speech, and no intrusive oversight. Now, Harvard's lawyers are reportedly pushing for similar protections, but with 10 times more money, that $500 million on the line. The political pressure is far greater. More than a dozen Democratic Congress members who attended Harvard cautioned against a settlement on August 1st, even warning the university that if they cut a deal with the Trump administration, that will warrant, quote, rigorous congressional oversight and inquiry, meaning they're going to be talking about and explaining why they did this in Congress forever. In a statement, Congressman Sam Liccardo says, quote, we urge Harvard to defend its institutional independence and academic integrity from this blatant attempt at political intimidation. Congressman Raul Ruiz notes, quote, Harvard must stand firm in defending academic freedom and institutional independence. This is a test of values, and the university has a chance to lead by example. Now, if Harvard capitulates under financial and political duress, future presidents, Republican or Democrats, will know they can bypass the courts and instead wield federal funding as a blunt instrument to reshape campus life. That path does not just punish one school, it chills scholarship and discourse nationwide. The truth is, research dollars can be recouped in time, but once universities signal they can be coerced into political compliance, reputations, credibility, and intellectual freedom are far harder to restore. Harvard is right to be wary. The settlement it accepts now will not only define this chapter of history, but it will also set the terms for how and whether higher education in America can resist political retaliation for the decades to come.
Well, I agree that Harvard should be free of federal influence, as should other universities. Of course, the swiftest way to accomplish that would be to liberate them from the pressure of accepting federal tax dollars in the first place.
Don't take any money in the first place.
They have a $1 billion endowment, billions of dollars in their endowment. Why don't they just disperse some of those funds to make up for the missing research dollars?
Well, I think a lot of the money that is recouped from the government is going to amazing programs that fund some medical science that really has transformed and changed our world. The scientists and the research that comes out of Harvard University is used to create vaccines and medicines that have changed lives globally. And I think that we always, as America and America first, right, would want the top and the best and the brightest, even international students, coming to our schools so that we are the people that have come up with all the next everything. I mean, the next best thing in AI, the next best thing in medicine. And in order to do that, it might sound like a lot, but it also sounds like it is a lot of money to run and operate the most prestigious school in the world, right? That's costs a lot. You got to pay professors properly. You have to get all these institutions funded, all the schools funded. Yes, you need to ask former people who attended the school to donate to the school, but also you need to raise funds. And so this is our system with the government. And also we want schools to be free, where students go and find out who they are, explore things, create ideas. And I think when you start to have the Trump administration hanging over them, which is not, it's not like bipartisan at all with ideas for the most part. It's pretty much my way or the highway, as we see what they're doing with a lot of the institutions throughout DC, like the museums and things. So I think if they're hanging over and combing through, what does this oversight look like? What actually needs to be reported? Because I think that Harvard and the students mostly are going to be made to be uncomfortable knowing that anything they do could pretty much create this cycle again. Even if it's a Democratic president, they can come in and say, well, I don't like what you're doing now. Let's threaten you $500 million. And also this number is astronomical.
This is not
How did we get to $500 million?
This is not a theoretical, what if a Democratic president comes in and does this? The Democratic presidents, the previous two ones, did this exact same thing.
They threatened funding for Harvard?
Yes.
And what was the outcome?
Did Harvard
pay $500 million?
No, the outcome was Harvard did what they wanted them to do with respect to Title IX enforcement on accommodations for trans students. There's a question to you. Federal government comes in and says, in order to qualify for federal funding, you need to make your male facilities available to female facilities available to female presenting male students, or we're yanking all your federal funding. Do you think that's appropriate?
No, I don't think. My whole thesis
is with the Biden administration.
My whole thesis is, but it's not with one though. I can be, open-minded enough to understand that I don't want federal oversight over universities that have allowed an openness and a dialogue to create the next best and brightest in the world.
Some federal oversight.
But I want it to be a free space. And as long as people are not like egregiously offending each other, yes, they need to fix the problems on campus that Harvard president has addressed. They can do better with students of color. They can do better with Jewish students. They can do better with making Middle Eastern students feel like just because they are opposing what is now a war that they are not anti-Semites, right? They can do better with all of that. But it is an open institution where some of the biggest protests of our lifetimes have happened near or around or in college campuses. And I think that some of the greatest thought leaders have come from colleges that have changed the world. And so we shouldn't try to hamper that by making people cooperate with what Trump administration feels is okay, because the next administration can do the same thing. And this will just be a cycle going on and on again. And yes, I'll point to Biden and say, if you have something that is still not settled within our own government, right, about what should be done with the small, that very fringe issue of transgender bathrooms, and if that was actually on a conversation block for Biden and Harvard, which I don't know that much about that conversation that you're saying.
Oh, it wasn't just Harvard; it was every school in the country.
Then I think that it should be settled about what the law of the land is, and then we should communicate that to Harvard University and other universities. But I do not think we should just be threatening them based on what our administration feels.
That's what Biden, Obama, and Trump are all doing this under the auspices of existing federal law. They're saying that federal civil rights law, federal harassment law, already obligates these schools to act in a way, and they're not acting in that way. And so they're in violation of law, and thus eligible to lose funding. So they're not, that's where this is coming from. They're saying it's coming from a violation of federal non-discrimination law, federal non-harassment law, federal racial equality law. And all things I presume you support.
What is wrong with having a conversation with the school versus starting with the threats of pulling funding? So the way that Trump goes about things, even what we're talking about in D.C., the way that he went about sending troops to L.A., he very much skips over having the conversation with the people that are most involved, like the local leadership or like the presidents of Harvard, and goes straight to threatening. And so this tactic seems like political retribution. Like, is it even about the matter at hand, which was that Jewish students on campus were feeling uncomfortable, or is this now about proving a point in ego? And that's what I would like to stay away from within every administration.
Well, next up, Trump is set to meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin tomorrow. Can anything really be gained from the summit? We'll talk about it next. Stay with us.
Any consequences if Vladimir Putin does not agree to stop the war after your meeting on Friday?
Yes, they will. Yeah.
What will the consequences
There will be
be?
consequences.
Sanctions, tariffs?
There will be, I don't have to say, there will be very severe consequences.
That was President Trump there vowing severe consequences on Russia if his meeting with Putin tomorrow is not productive.
It will mark the first meeting between a U.S. and Russian leader since Russia's invasion of Ukraine in 2022. Trump has made it clear his ultimate goal is to end the war, even if that means what he called a land swap, an idea that Ukraine has dismissed.
But some who have been following the conflict closely say a deal at the summit, even if it includes ceding Ukrainian territory to Russia, may be the only chance at peace. Take a listen to comedian Dave Smith's heated exchange with activist William Browder on Piers Morgan's show.
Let's try to negotiate an end to this nightmare that never needed to happen.
Yeah, that's exactly what Neville Chamberlain did.
I'll shut up. Anybody ever arguing against war is always Neville Chamberlain. That is the one and only lesson of history, that appeasement never works and aggression is always right. We appease dictators all over the world. We overthrow democratically elected governments and prop up dictators. What are you even talking about?
The exchange didn't end there. Here's a little more.
You obviously are not educated on the issues. The reason why Vladimir Putin is at war is for his own personal survival. He's not going to back off from this war. To then appease him at this moment, to give him Ukraine is just a complete...
You're not giving him anything. It's not yours to give. He took it and you can't get it back. Deal with that reality.
Yeah, took the words out of my own heart, Dave. Dave's a friend of mine. I agree with him on most foreign policy topics, and I certainly agree here. It's not appeasement, it's just the cold hard facts, which is that we can't stop him from taking, he's going to take all of Ukraine unless we reach some kind of deal. So you can call that appeasement. I just call it not losing all of Ukraine to Russia.
Well, I think the one thing that I agreed about that he said is that we would like to end the war. So the fact that there's a conversation happening is great. but also the fact that Zelensky's not even going to be in the room is a disaster. And the fact that there's not a unified strategy amongst all of our European allies that are in NATO, talking about what they would like to see happen from this meeting with President Trump, as opposed to this picturesque moment that we're going to get with Vladimir Putin sitting next to Trump in a place that Vladimir Putin suggested and picked, even though he's been playing a game with Trump for the last 7 months of his presidency, where he's gotten on the phone with him or met in person now. This will be the 5th time. I don't think that visually looks good to the people that we care most about, which would be our allies. And so we need to be having conversations about what exactly they would like.
If our allies have great ideas, they can bring them up. There's nothing stopping them.
No,
they don't have good ideas.
They can be in the meeting, though. That's what I mean. Like, there should be more conversation happening about how to handle this. So one conversation that should be happening more is that, maybe Biden put light sanctions on Russia that weren't, that effective. But if we continue down that road and continue to make it uncomfortable for Russia, they're not going to go against the entire Europe and America and say, okay, we're just going to keep going and blaze through Ukraine. Perhaps a little bit of more of an amenable solution for Zelensky will come about. But now it's just like, whatever you want. And then at the same time, my biggest issue has been that Trump consistently berates Zelensky. And it's like, he is not the aggressor here. He is the person just defending his country.
He berated him one time.
No, every time. As recent as last week, he berated him for having a perspective on whether or not he wants to cede any land to Russia. Trump said, well, I don't know why. Like, he says this publicly all the time. Just call up Zelensky and say what you want to say, but constantly trying to make a fool out of that man who's trying to defend his country.
I don't think he's constantly trying to make a fool out of him.
He's villainizing them all the time, to me. And that's my perspective in the way that he's talking about that. I'm not the only one that feels this way. There's several people that say the tone is completely off. You would think that in some cases that Ukraine is the actual aggressor here, which is confusing to people.
He's frustrated with both Zelensky, and he's been periodically frustrated with Zelensky and Putin. He's frustrated this war is continuing. He's upset about the position Biden put him in. Our European allies, we can take them or leave them. They're addicted to Russian energy, so they're only going to be so useful here. If they really were serious about this, they could wean themselves off from that little addiction, and that might do something to Russia, but they're not going to do it. So put up or shut up. Fine.
But there are other ideas. So I was reading yesterday that the Council on Foreign Relations, they have a suggestion here. They said that we should seize and freeze Russian assets so that they won't have up to $260 billion from Europe, and that will really make them move and support Ukraine's reconstruction with some of that assets that they're freezing from Europe. So we can't be the only people putting money, into Ukraine. Obviously, I support Europe doing their part, and I've said that multiple times, but I don't think that just stopping right here where Russia is prepared to have a conversation and not with Zelensky is the solution. I think that we should be coming to the table with what the larger party involved in NATO wants.
Facilitate a Zelensky conversation coming up next. He's first going to do the meeting with Putin.
But he's already said, yes, we're going to do a land swap. You're making agreements, just like, we were listening to the podcast and he's like, it's not your land to discuss. It's not Trump's either. Trump went on national TV and said, yeah, we're going to, do a land swap. How? How can you say? This is up to Zelensky.
Well, that's obviously what the deal is going to involve. If you're right, if Ukraine doesn't want to swap any land, then they can just watch as the entire country is conquered by Russia, and they'll swap 100% of the land. Like, what do people want? Do you want to lose 100% of Ukraine, or do we want to lose part of Ukraine?
I don't think
it seems
the
obvious to
allies
me.
Are comfortable with
we're all
solution.
failing the trolley problem here. Like, obviously, you run over 6 people instead of 20 people. Like, that's just what's got to be to happen. It's not ideal. I wish we could prevent it, but we can't unless we send in ground troops, and we're not going to do that. No one wants to do that. I don't want to do that. Not even the most staunch pro-Ukrainian, defend it to the last man actually thinks that the U.S. should commit troops, in which case we are just negotiating.
And what do you say to people that are uncomfortable with the idea that as Russia continues to take over Ukrainian territory and creep closer to some of our NATO allies, that they're highly uncomfortable with that? Because obviously, like you said, I don't know that Russia wants a war, but Russia probably does want more land, more access to situations that make them more powerful. And so we would not want that to happen.
The surest way to give them more land is to let the war continue. The war continuing will result in them getting even more land because they're going to win the war, because Ukraine does not have the resources to prevent Russia's eventual conquest of the country. So because I do not want all of Ukraine to fall into Russian hands, and because I do not want Russia at the doorstep of our NATO allies, I am forced to contend with, I don't have any dog in the fight, I am forced to accept the reality that As a result of this war, some Ukrainian territory will shift into Russia's possession, and hopefully that will be that.
And another major reality that you must be forced to contend with is the fact that Putin has played President Trump multiple times this year alone by saying one thing and then doing egregious acts the next day. And Trump has been like, I'm so surprised, I'm so surprised. So going to this entire meeting later or tomorrow and trying to say you're going to come up with some solution and telling reporters, oh, there will be consequences. I mean, you said that 5 times now. There won't be consequences. I think that's the biggest failure for us is that, yes, we're willing to bend to Russia's will. However, there's a way and a position you can put this to make it seem like Russia cannot just do whatever they want.
The worst case scenario of this negotiation is that it doesn't work, and then Russia just continues the conquest of Ukraine. So the worst case scenario of my plan is what your plan calls for, which is just a war between the two countries.
The best case scenario would be to have a conversation with the people that have the most stake in this game. That's our NATO allies who don't want Russia impeding on their territory, and to make sure that we are propelling Zelensky to protect himself and his country and find ways to communicate with him about what he would like. Because obviously he's not getting everything he wants. He's not getting them to completely get out of there and give back everything. Exactly.
I'm glad you recognize that Russia's saying, we're so sorry, here's the whole country back.
I don't think that's realistic, but
he
can say, okay, here's what we're going to do, and here's a solution that makes sense to me. And President Trump, before he lets, I'm sure they're having conversations, but before he lets the general public know about what the strategy is going to be, like, oh yeah, we're giving up land, perhaps he should make sure that he's in sync with the people that are our allies, NATO, and all the countries involved in that, and the number one person involved, which is Zelensky, because he's very communicative about what he's saying with Putin and how those conversations are
Trump
going.
is the
but
peace
he's not,
president,
no,
the hero of the Armenia,
again,
Azerbaijan conflict, a proposed Nobel Peace Prize winner.
No.
I'm proposing it. Azerbaijan and Armenia, our dear, beautiful friends, have proposed it. So if he settles this one, the Nobel Prize is not significant enough for him.
And if
we need to create an even
greater
prize that we can award to Trump.
Okay, but if he doesn't settle it and Zelensky's never satisfied, like the way he's asking Putin, what would you like? He can simply ask Zelensky what would he like, and if he doesn't settle it, then here we are in war throughout his presidency. Like, it can continue to go on for years as it has.
Right. The worst thing that could happen is that it was the same situation as it was under Biden and is under now.
And he's not the great negotiator-in-chief that he said he was. He said he would get this handled ASAP, and it's
he's
certainly not ASAP.
He's a powerful diplomat and an amazing voice for peace, but he is just a man, I think. He can only do so much.
Just a man excuse. Okay. I think that's convenient. Mehdi Hasan is throwing out one well-known name to run in 2028. Find out who that is next. We'll be right back after this. So broadcaster Mehdi Hasan is pitching one familiar name to run for president in 2028. Comedian and TV host Jon Stewart. What do you think? Hasan made the remarks in his memo for his media site, Zateo, writing, quote, "Part of me would love to see Stewart primary. The Kushner confirming, crypto backing, genocide supporting, war criminal hugging, AIPAC texting Cory Booker in his home state of New Jersey next year. But part of me now also thinks Stewart should consider running for president in 2028.
Others have also backed Stewart on a potential run, including radio host Charlemagne and progressive YouTuber Kyle Kulinski. And other polling also suggests Democratic voters seem open to the idea. In a hypothetical primary lineup by Interactive Polls, Stewart was tied with Gretchen Whitmer, J.B. Pritzker, and Josh Shapiro. It all comes after Hasan has made an appearance on Stewart's podcast, and he brought up the topic. Let's watch.
Unless, John, you're thinking of throwing your hat in the ring, which I know many people want you to throw your hat in the ring. If that's what you're suggesting, we can talk about that. But please, otherwise, no TV show hosts.
None of those.
Jon Stewart has never shown any interest in running. I think this is like the left equivalent of people on the right keep saying, Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson does not want to run for president. He's been perfectly clear on that. He has no desire. He's not going to do it. He's said that over and over again, and I believe him. Maybe Jon Stewart hasn't taken that same militancy. It would be, again, funny in Earth Dimension 84,000 to see Tucker and Jon Stewart run against each other, given their history with the Crossfire thing. But this is kind of just fan casting, right?
Yeah, I think, also Mehdi was very much like honored to interview Jon Stewart, and the interview was very much like whoever my favorite person is, let's say Oprah, and then I'm like, oh, you should run for president. So it is kind of in jest, but also serious. I think, Jon Stewart is unique in that he's been able to criticize both sides of the aisle and also been very effective in his communication. And he, has put his energy behind legislation in the past and also been somebody who can translate a way to communicate. So, like in leadership, sometimes it's really about the way that you effectively communicate. Even with Trump's administration, he has pushed through Republican norms and found a way to touch the base in a way that says, I'm just like you, even though he's a billionaire. And he just has an effective communication style that really sits with the MAGA base. I think Jon Stewart could possibly be one of those great orators and communicators in the way that Steve Jobs was. And there's other people that were coding Apple. There's other people that are helping run the government. And so I think if Jon Stewart is interested in this, as long as he lays out a clear policy that aligns with maybe some of his amazing interviews or communication style, then it would actually be relevant. But if he is just somebody who has a lot of perspectives on a lot of topics, just like Tucker Carlson, I don't know that that is the most ideal candidate when people actually are still worried about their pocketbooks, rent, mortgage, credit card bills, etc.
Jon Stewart has done some political things. He spoke before Congress on getting medical care or settlements or whatever is necessary for first responders, 9/11, that kind of thing. So he's, maybe dipped his toes into some congressional type action. It was quite an attack on Cory Booker from Mehdi. That's what you read with that long preamble was
there's
AIPAC
criticism about
backed.
There's criticism about.
Tell us how you really feel, Mehdi.
Well, there's criticism about the way that Cory Booker moves around in a way that he'll do like a filibuster all night, which some people find very performative, but then he'll go and support a candidate or vote for a bill that goes against everything that his party is standing for at the time. And so there's been multiple instances where people feel like Cory Booker is more about showing than actually doing in actions. And I think people within the party are just tired of people that, I think with Marjorie Taylor Greene or something, she's very vocal, like, I'm going against my party in this way, but still like these things. Cory Booker is very much like, I'm doing this thing, and then somebody catches him in the act doing something else, and then he's either not explaining himself or explaining himself to a degree that voters aren't that comfortable with.
Mehdi's issue with Cory Booker, though, is that Mehdi is an uncompromising leftist, and Cory Booker is not. So Mehdi, it's ideological. It's not about anything else. He wants the furthest left person on every subject. He's a far left person. He thinks the far left is correct about everything. Everybody's got to be more radically left. And so it's interesting that he thinks Jon Stewart is
maybe... Well, it's not like you guys landed on a particularly centrist Republican Mitt Romney-style president yourselves. So I think...
Mitt Romney's a centrist now?
I'm saying it's not like you guys landed on
Nobody
that. Nobody
treated Mitt Romney like he was a centrist
But Trump is not like that at all. That's what I'm saying. Like, you guys landed on somebody that's pretty far right. Oh, okay, no. I think
Trump is way too centrist on entitlements, Social Security, Medicare, spending.
He just cut so much in this big, beautiful bill and is touting it. Republicans can't even get in front of local... We gotta go. We're gonna talk about this more tomorrow. Can't even get in front of their constituents right now.
He's not temperamentally a centrist, but he's policy-wise a centrist. That does it for us on Rising Live. Look out for more YouTube exclusive content coming your way today. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe to Dale's YouTube channel so you never miss any content. And for those of you who listen while on the go, we'll be available anywhere you listen to podcasts. And we will both be back here tomorrow for your Friday. See you then.